Looking to find collectible figures at low cost with superior customer service? Fanboy Collectibles is one of the largest retailers of high-end collectibles on the east coast of the USA, carrying a full array of Hot Toys, Enter-based Sideshow Collectibles 3A and all the top manufacturers. Domestic and international packages shipped daily, all fully insured with tracking number and securely packed. Getting it to you as quickly is important, but not as important as your collectibles arriving in pristine condition. Are you looking to pre-order an item to guarantee you don't miss it when it's released? Well, Fanboy Collectibles does that too. If you got a question about an item, give them a call, shoot them an email, or even leave them a message on their Facebook page. Fanboy Collectibles is available full-time to respond to you and to get your items to you as quickly as possible. Anyone can make a sale. Fanboy Collectibles knows the key to being successful is repeat customers. That comes from doing the right thing by you and making customer services their priority. Fanboy Collectibles. For some it's a hobby, to them it's an obsession. Hello! Welcome to episode 12, the Starting to Get Funny Thought Kid episode of the Hottoycast. The upmarket and altogether dashing podcast about all things high-end collectibles, from action figures from the likes of Hot Toys, Enter-Bay, A3 Toys and Sideshow Collectibles. Your host and I will review and discuss the latest news and releases from those toy companies that make action figures that mix a bit like Benjamin Button. Now, if you will, allow me to introduce your most magnificent hosts. My name is Master Eamon O'Donoghue, also known as Eamon on toy boards.
This is Master Michael Crawford, known as Michael Crawford just about everywhere.
My name's Jeff Parker, also going by the pseudonym of Wookster in a few places on this planet.
And today we are delighted to be joined by sculptor extraordinaire Trevor Grove for some insights into the industry and some Q&A from ourselves and some equally classy listeners. So,
hey, how you guys doing?
How's it going, Trevor? How are you doing today, sir?
I appreciate the invitation to join you guys. This is cool.
Oh, well, there you go.
Cool to finally put a voice to the face. After all these years of seeing you on Facebook and various other places online, it's nice to actually hear the voice.
Boy, I hope I don't disappoint.
A voice that head sculpt even. So, Trevor, could you take us off then, sir? Like, give us, let us know who you are and what folks will know your work from.
No problem. Yeah. Trevor Grove. I've been working in collectibles field now for about 7 years, mostly with Sideshow Collectibles. I think most people associate me with portrait work, likeness portrait work. Stuff I've done mostly with Sideshow is I've done a heck of a lot of Harrison Fords. I mean, most people know those. I've done some Star Wars stuff. And, I'm trying to think of ones we've done. Gosh, it all kind of slips by me, but some Lord of the Rings things with them. Just a whole bunch of stuff.
I was going to say, Trevor, I have to admit, over the years, I mean, obviously, we're all impressed by the stuff the stuff you've been doing that you're commissioned to do for the mainstream, the stuff that actually ends up on the market. But watching you from the sidelines as well, I've been really impressed by a lot of the stuff that you've been showing on DeviantArt, some of the kind of more personal projects, stuff you did on Tom Waits.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, that stuff's really.
Oh man,
fun.
that blew me away. The Tom Waits portrait was just beautiful.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Tom Waits, and that's something I'd been trying to do for quite a few years, actually, and failed a couple of times, and got one that I really liked, and unfortunately the molding went bad, so I kind of got to go back and do another one.
Oh, really?
Sometimes, yeah, there's always these technical aspects of things where you can't predict what's going to happen, and yeah, that one kind of died on me, but it was very fun to sculpt. I'm glad you liked it.
What scale did you do that at?
Yeah, that was probably about life size. I wasn't really trying to do anything that big, but I did it in water clay, and that stuff it's really fun, and you can just pack a ton of it together without much armature. So I just went to town, and it ended up being pretty large. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'd like to go back and try that again.
Now, in case folks are wondering what Trevor's discussing, if you want to look on your devices, we're actually loading up images as we're talking. So all the little head sculpts that Trevor's referring to, you can actually see them on the podcast now. So you see it. So look on your phone or whatever you're listening to right now, and it's there. Ooh, look at it. Ooh. When working for Sideshow, have you produced work like on differing scales? Or do you have a scale you always particularly work at?
Oh yeah, we do all kinds of scales. We've most of what I do is either 1/6 scale or 1/4 scale, but man, we've done everything from like 1/8 to maybe 1/10. I actually just recently did a larger thing for Sideshow, which isn't commonly what I'm doing, which was about half scale. They're doing these like legendary scale figures. They're like 3 feet tall representations of some classic characters. Yeah, that's been about the largest I've worked for them. But yeah, we kind of run the gamut.
So you wouldn't say there was any one particular scale that you kind of like, that you kind of prefer? Is it just one of those things where you sometimes obviously you're commissioned, so you're kind of like you have to work at a scale, but
Right.
you wouldn't say there was one that you by preference kind of are drawn more towards?
Not really. No, I kind of like the variety. Most of anything smaller than 6 scale is kind of a little too taxing on my eyes. But I like the variety of it. It's cool to be able to do things. Each one has kind of its own challenges, and it's fun to jump around.
Cool.
We actually have a listener question from the Sideshow Freaks who wanted to know if what were you working on right now, if you can talk about it, anything you can talk about that you're currently working on, and then any of the cool genre stuff that you are working on right now that would be of interest.
Right. Interestingly, I actually can share something. Usually I can't. I have to be tight-lipped about it. But I started doing some work with a company called Tweeterhead. They do pre-painted maquettes and things. And we recently did an Elvira that just debuted this month. Yeah. And we're going to be heading into doing a whole line of monsters. So we did.
Really? Cool.
Fred Gwynn is Herman, and we're about to start in on Lily. So that's kind of on my desk right now.
Nice.
That's a lot of fun.
I recognize that name, Tweeterhead. Does he do like busts and things like that as well?
Mm-hmm. I think he started doing model kits and things, and he's kind of moving into pre-painted statues.
Oh well, you know him as well, because I helped out on one of his pinups actually as well, one of his standard regular little girly pinups. So I've done I've done like the poses for them and things and for them.
Hey, that's cool.
There you go, small world, man. There you go.
Yep, that's crazy.
The more I get to meet people in this trade, the more I realise just how incestuous it is.
It's very true. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
I was going to say, something that I've noticed, recently is that there has been a quantum leap in the quality of the kind of mass and semi-mass produced figures that are being released by various companies, and there is always kind of new pretenders to the throne kind of coming along and offering more and more kind of incredible stuff. I mean, it seems like there's so much talent out there.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, obviously, working in that field, do you ever feel a kind of sense of rivalry? Is that this kind of like, oh wow, this guy's done a really great job on that. I've got to like better him now. The next time there comes up, next time a portrait of, I don't know, whoever it is, Harrison Ford or comes up, and it's like, I've got to nail it.
I've never really been a competitive person, but when you do see something that's amazing, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm nowhere near this. I got to get better. So there is that kind of, everybody kind of keeps each other propelling forward, maybe without even knowing it. I don't know if other people feel, like a competitiveness necessarily, but for me, I just like, I feel like I have to keep trying to get better just to keep up, kind of, because it gets every year. It seems like the things that were coming out last year and wowing us aren't quite as impressive as the things coming out this year, and that kind of blows my mind.
Yeah, because I've kind of felt that, as a collector, being on this side of the fence, it's kind of like, we're all reviewing stuff, on a week-by-week basis, and just collecting stuff. Sometimes we don't do just a review, we're just kind of like knocked out by it. And I often feel like I'm looking at something, I'm thinking, God, how much better can these guys get at this scale?
Yeah,
right.
Surely this can't get any better. But then 12 months down the line, somehow it is. It's like, the detailing on, you're getting sort of like shadows in mouths where they're putting teeth in from behind and eyes are just getting better and that kind of thing. And obviously, looking at the work that you're doing, Trev, at the scale the different scales that you're working at, it's phenomenal. But do you sometimes feel like, you hand over the job and there it is, it's this beautiful piece of sculpting that you've done, but then it needs to be painted by someone else or for a kind of a mass-produced thing. You must kind of like, grit your teeth then and kind of hide your eyes and think, how's it going to come out?
Right, yeah. And it's usually not like a lack of faith in the other talent involved. No. It's more so just that you feel like, oh man, I might feel like I have gotten it right, but there might be things that are wrong that don't emerge until it's been painted, So once you see that, sometimes you're like, oh boy, I didn't quite get what I thought I got, which looked fine in that grayscale sculpt form. But
what would be a good example of that? Have you any good examples of that?
I can't even. For me, it kind of feels that way about everything.
Or is there a particular anatomy part that you always find that always comes out a little odd?
Oh yeah,
what particular anatomy parts do you find difficult?
The eyes are definitely the toughest thing. You get just like a fraction off with the eyes, and it shows so much in paint. I feel really bad for painters when they have to tackle that stuff, because it's like if the sculpt isn't completely dead on, it's really rough. Yeah.
Okay. Now, maybe you could go into a little bit, because you've got some amazing some of your own things that you do kind of on your own privately. My friend like Dan Reed, he's very interested in your head sculpts for things like Breaking Bad and Russell, your Kurt Russell heads. And I'm looking at your Facebook here. You even got Saul here. You've got a Saul Goodman bobblehead. I mean, come on.
The Breaking Bad stuff, that's been an absolute joy for me, because I'm a massive, annoyingly massive fan of the show. Those things I just do on my own time. And with Breaking Bad, the cool thing there was it actually led to getting to do some official stuff, which was fun. The toys that have been coming out lately for that. But,
which ones are those? Which ones have you actually done there now? What exactly officially licensed Breaking Bad figures have you done? So everyone knows.
Mezco Toys came out with some little posed figures. They aren't articulate, but and also a bobblehead. And we're doing a few other things. Saul is part of that. I think. But and as far as my other side project stuff, that's all just kind of passion stuff, things I enjoy. I don't have much time for it these days, but it's definitely something I enjoy doing.
Because you did some very cool work on the Serenity cast as well.
Oh yeah, thank you.
But I take it that was a passion thing as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I tried to get people to go for producing that, but nobody seemed interested. So I just
I've been trying for years to get people interested in Firefly as a license, especially 6 scale, and they just won't bite.
I guess it's maybe because there's something you to do.
It's possible, but I think there's enough brown coats out there that there'd be interest at least for the main characters without any trouble at all.
And I agree.
The brown coats are definitely a serious bunch of fans.
Hey,
we got another listener question. This one's from Matt Lou, also from Sideshow Freaks, and he's really interested in the overall process when you're working with Sideshow. It's like a series of questions here about how do you receive the assignments, how many does he work on at a time, how much research does he have to do and what kind, how many revisions do you generally make to a sculpt, and how much feedback do you receive from Sideshow? How's the back and forth in that whole process?
Okay, yeah. It starts very much the same with every company. You get an email or a call with a project, and you decide if you can handle it. And most of what I'm asked to do is portraiture or likeness stuff. So I then, in rare instances, there's actual reference that the company can give you that comes down from the licensor, and the licensor is the person who owns the property that's getting sculpted. But for the most part, I'm kind of left on my own to hunt down reference, and the internet, makes that pretty easy. But some people, like some celebrities, are easier than others. You're going to find a hell of a lot more photos of a hot woman than you are like Fred Gwynn. So there's kind of that becomes a challenge of it all. But for the most part, I'm able to find enough to work from, and I go into wax. That's my preferred sculpting medium. It's pretty popular in toys. Though I'm not too sure, companies like Hot Toys, I'm not too sure they work in wax or clay, but it seems like a lot of the most impressive stuff nowadays is being done in clay, which boggles my mind.
Why is that?
It's the cool thing about wax is it's really a hard medium, so it gives you a lot of control, and it also, because it's hard, you can pack a lot of detail into it. So when you go to clay, even a hard grade clay, it's very delicate. You can't really hold it. You got to kind of just. I guess it's kind of hard to put into words, but it blows my mind that they can get the level they're getting in clay. But that's kind of a... Yeah. I'm sorry?
I was going to say, especially when you consider that a lot of the work they're doing seems to be being done at 1/6 scale. They're literally doing the originals at 1/6. They're not like scaling down.
Right, yeah. Most of what gets done is done at the size you get it. So it's really phenomenal.
Because normally they would pentograph it down, wouldn't they? They would work big and they would use a pentograph, isn't it, to scale it back down again?
That's right.
That used to be the way they did it with production toys and stuff. But yeah, I don't really know if that gets done too much in the high-end collectible stuff now.
Yeah, it's funny because I work the place I work. I could tell you a lot, but I'd have to kill you all. But I work in a building where some of the sculpture work is done for Madame Tussauds, and I know a lot of the sculptors in there, and I'll quite often take in some of the toys that I've got and like show them, and they're always blown away by it, and they're just like, God, these things are just amazing. Especially when I say, and not only that they sculpt at this size, they're not like done 1 scale or half scale or quarter scale. They actually work at this scale, and increasingly they're just like, how the hell do they do it?
Right.
It just seems to be this, And the other thing that I find phenomenal is talking to these guys, obviously like professionals like yourself. You're talented people, and you work on a job by job basis, and you obviously put your invoice in or whatever. Now, obviously, to most punters, when they're buying these figures, they're thinking, "Oh God, the prices are going up and it's expensive," and it is. There's no two ways about it. It is getting a very expensive hobby for a lot of people to stay in. But a lot of people that I know in the trade look at them, and when I tell them that this figure would retail at $150 or $200, they're like, "Really? That cheap?" That's their kind of reaction.
Yeah. Really?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, because in the collectors community, we all are complaining how expensive it's getting.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, and a lot of that, I think, is because I don't know how you can get artists to work on this stuff when it isn't going to take them, 3 weeks to do that kind of level quality, and at a certain point it becomes improbable for somebody to work that long and not get a little something in return for it,
Absolutely.
But yeah.
How long would it actually take you then to say? We'll say let's pick Benedict Cumberbatch. So you did Benedict Cumberbatch for Big Chief Toys, didn't you? Yeah,
that was fun. Yeah, that took that was probably about a month. Yeah, with but that kind of goes into the approval process of the thing and the the little tweaks and stuff that you got to do. But yeah, the really realistic stuff is taxing. At a certain point, you're searching for the likeness in the thing, which takes you don't quite know if you're going to be able to do it. So that takes a certain amount of time. And then kind of once you feel like you've got it, there's all the kind of busy work of detailing the thing and making it really kind of look as flawless as you can, because that's certainly expected these days.
So would you get the basic, because obviously I'm an artist myself, not a sculptor, just an illustrator. So there's I run this the way that you talk is very similar to illustrating in 2D, and faces are like one of the things that I kind of specialize in and things like that as well. But
excellent.
So when you start off, do you work out again? Because I'm picking Benedict Cumberbatch because A, your head sculpt is particularly good. B, he's a particularly odd looking human.
Right.
So I would like I'm picking that one particularly, and just discuss how. So that starts off. So you got your round piece of clay, wax as it is for you, wax.
Yeah, I'll kind of describe with wax. Yeah, you work in you have to kind of work with heat. So you heat up the wax, and you form kind of the basic shape of what you're doing, and then you work with heated tools to carve into that.
All right.
So, and that's the bulk of the work right there. And then you can start to kind of, searching for a likeness, I don't quite know how to describe how that is. No, you have a ton of reference, and it's sort of just comparing the two, you're constantly being critical of what you're making. So.
Do you find that trying to do pretty people is more difficult than doing people who have some character in their face, some things that you can lock onto?
Like Martin
Absolutely. Freeman. Yeah. Oddly enough, though, I thought Martin Freeman and Benedict Cumberbatch, I thought they would be quite easy because they're both very distinctive-looking people. For some reason, those ones were killer. They were tough. But for the most part, pretty people are more difficult because there's less to latch on to. You kind of usually need lots of open space within the face, to smooth surfaces. and it's difficult to make that come through sometimes. Whereas,
and I, as a viewer of that kind of art, it tends, from my perspective, to be that the pretty people, when you break it all down, do look a lot alike too. You know what I mean? It's a very subtle difference between one pretty woman and another pretty woman. And if you try to accentuate that stuff too much, then it starts to get kind of a caricature-ish look to it. So I can imagine that's much more difficult.
Also, I always kind of imagine that, particularly when you're dealing with fragile egos of actors, and then obviously once you've done your work and you send it off to Sideshow and you're happy with it, and they might even be happy with it, but then they need to show to the licensor and potentially the people of whoever it may be, whether it's Robert Downey Jr. or whoever, and say, look, okay, we need you to approve this now. And that must be very frustrating, as I can imagine there must be a lot of work that gets to that stage where everybody's happy with it, and it's like, no, it's not right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
He doesn't look pretty enough. He's not young enough, or he hasn't got enough character, or da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
One of the most frustrating things is that you don't quite know who you're dealing with. If it's a licensor, I mean, it's very rarely the actual talent. And so when you're getting these kind of insane criticisms, sometimes it's just coming down from somebody who, their opinion really isn't any more valid than your own. So it's kind of tough.
Well, and I've heard horror stories too of actors and actresses who don't really know what they look like. Really, they have a slightly different perception of their own look, which can make it very difficult for a sculptor trying to capture the real look.
Absolutely,
exactly.
I mean, I'm funny enough. The reason I mentioned Robert Downey Jr., I'm now holding in my hand it's not one of yours, I'm afraid, Trevor. It's one that I got from Hot Toys, from the new Mark 7 for the Iron Man series, and it's a really lovely portrait, and you can tell it's Robert Downey Jr., but it's a kind of 1940s matinee idol version of Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, right.
He's just a little bit younger. He's a little bit more chiseled. He's obviously just had a few visits to his surgeon, and everything's looking just that little bit tighter and more perfect than it is in the real world. It's undoubtedly Robert Downey Jr., but at the same time, I don't know this. This is just me. This is my conjecture. But I would imagine that we know what you guys are capable of. But I would imagine that there might have been a better version out there that his people thought perhaps wasn't quite as sensitive as it could have been. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's just me.
Completely possible.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, Trevor, I was wondering, for other artists out there who are looking to, take it and break into the industry, what do you think? How did you manage to break in? What do you think was the turning point? And what did you do to really get seen?
Well, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an illustrator, so sculpting wasn't really even in my peripheral at that point. But at the end of high school, I started I always collected toys and stuff as a kid, so I think that's kind of where it started for me. And then in high school, I kind of started playing around with clay and got fascinated with it and what I might be able to do with portraiture. It kind of always started with wanting to do likenesses. And thankfully, I just started searching stuff online, and at the time, there were some great sculpting communities, message boards and stuff, that I was able to get to be a part of. I don't know if those are still around now. I haven't really been as active in that as I used to be. But the great thing I found was that there were very talented artists that were very willing to be forthright in what they knew, and if so long as they kind of recognized that you were serious about what you were doing. And I mean, I'm very much the same way. If somebody approaches me now and I can tell that they are obviously very passionate about what they're doing, as forthright as I can be about what I know. And I think that's kind of essential to getting into it all, is just finding people who know more than you know and who are willing to share that. But other than that, it's just, good old-fashioned hard work, ton of hard work, to the point where you kind of start to think you're going a little mad. But but breaking in at that point was just, for me, about sharing the work I had done, not so much seeking out work, but just putting it online, letting people see it, see if they liked it. And, people kind of started to gravitate towards it. And I got encouragement from some artists that I really admired to approach Sideshow. Though I'm told the way I got into Sideshow was this little this message board competition thing that was going on years ago on Statue Forum. It was and it was kind of like win a job with Sideshow sort of thing, and a lot of people contributed to it and did some really cool work. And I think I did this. One of the competitions was like monsters or something like that, and I got a Star Wars alien, and we did this little like hammerhead sitting at a cantina table, and I'm told that was like the one thing that caught attention to Sideshow. So you never know. I've hardly ever done any alien work since, but it's kind of like so long as you do something from a real place, it's probably gonna get attention as you get better, and the work comes in after that.
Yeah, speaking of aliens, wasn't it? Because I know you worked for. I'm trying to think what the name of the place is. You did the pumpkin Villafane, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Villafane? Yeah, the pumpkin carving. Do you still do that?
I haven't done any this year, but it might come up again. Yeah, Ray Villafane and Andy
Burgles, yeah. Because I remember I used to, like, every Halloween used to like go and have a look at the website, because the stuff you guys do is just absolutely insane.
Oh, they're phenomenal.
For anybody out there that hasn't seen it, you've got to check it out. Is it Villafane Studios?
Yes, VillafaneStudios.com.
Yeah,
those guys are amazing.
Yeah, because
actually those two guys are two of the artists I was speaking of earlier. They kind of gave me a lot of encouragement in the early days and helped me out. But there's nothing those guys can't sculpt.
That's just because I remember Andy. I mean, obviously he's like a stalwart of the old kind of like sideshow figures. And I remember he even didn't he do the Hot Toys the Mars Attacks figures? I think he did them as well. I might be wrong there.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Was that Hot Toys?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, those are awesome.
But yeah, for anyone out there that hasn't checked it out, check it out. Yeah, I'm just googling now. It's VillafaneStudios.com. And the work you guys do for the Halloween pumpkin carving is it's the most insane stuff I've ever seen. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, Ray invited me to try that last year, and I was pretty terrified to give it a go. And it's a very different medium, because it isn't forgiving at all. But the way Ray will tell you, it's like, well, it's just a pumpkin. Start over with another pumpkin if it doesn't go well. But it's
also,
different.
I mean,
Cheap medium.
Yeah,
cheap medium.
The ephemeral nature of it must mean that because obviously you're carving on a foodstuff essentially that's going to rot very quickly. It's going to start smelling and looking really bad. So the stuff you guys, it's art. Go out and check it out. The stuff that you're doing is just amazing. It's just incredible. But it must just last for like days if you're lucky, but hours sometimes.
Yeah, it's more like hours, and well, for us, because we think it looks best when it's kind of still moist and everything. Once it starts drying out, it isn't so good. But they've actually kind of cracked a way to sort of preserve them, and they're doing a job in Hong Kong that it looks kind of like a mad scientist sort of lab, and they've taken their pumpkins and they're like putting them into big jars of, I think, a vinegar kind of mix or something, and it's actually preserving the work, and it should look good, for, I don't even know, an indefinite amount of time, I guess. But pretty cool.
Like that. Who's that German guy that plastifies human beings? The plastification process.
There you go.
If you can do it to people, I'm sure you can do it to pumpkins.
Exactly. Can't be that hard.
Now, we've just been joined by our straggler, James Double, and I believe, James, you there?
Yes.
Yay, there you are. James,
hey, guys.
James is Trevor, that's James.
Hey, James.
Hey, Trevor. How's it going?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
Sorry?
Oh, just asked how you were.
Oh, I'm good. And good. I wanted to tell you really quick, if nobody's said it yet, I think your Harrison Ford sculpts are the best out there.
Oh, thanks, man.
Indeed, that is a fact statement, kid. That's a fact statement.
Well, thank you.
That's to get, isn't it? How come the Hot Toys? It's just the Hot Toys one is so frustrating because it's so good. Everything else about it is so good, and the face is kind of almost there. I mean, obviously, I don't want to put you in an awkward position or anything like that here, but if you were to criticize something on that and say that face, what would? Because you got all the guys in these forums, and you got dudes slicing and dicing. You got guys claiming they're artists and they know anatomy and blah 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 blah.
Right.
And so you got all these experts out there, these pseudo experts out there, drawing their red lines around their the eyes proportion. if you know the Harrison Ford figure I'm talking about, the Hot Toys Indiana Jones one.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you were to criticize that, and obviously if that makes you feel uncomfortable, by all means turn this question down. But if you were to criticize
I don't mind.
What would you think that's kind of missing the beat there on that? Because they're so good. Majority of the time they're so good, but occasionally there's just a little bit of a miss there. What would you think would be the situation that would have happened there? Not that would have let such a pivotal and important figure as Indiana Jones, because he was a DX as well, you know.
Yeah,
so I was like,
I know, man. It's really hard to say. I mean, in my experience with Harrison Ford, it's always been incredibly difficult to even get close. So I know what they went through with that, and that it's the thing with him is he kind of has some strange features. It's sort of, if you exaggerate him a little too much, it looks bad, but you kind of can't go quite as literal as maybe they usually do, because it doesn't quite look like him. And one thing I noticed with it is they kind of didn't. I don't think they really did the bend in his nose. I mean, he's got this slight bend of his nose, and I don't remember that really being present in it. And also, it was kind of the early days of the movable eyes, right? Mm-hmm. And those kind of get this sort of, they look a little too recessed or something. They kind of get a dark edge around them. Yeah. And
mascara, as they say.
Right.
The fanboys use.
Which works fine for Captain Jack, but it's not so good on Indiana Jones. Yeah,
no.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also, he's got that curl in his lip too. That, I don't know. A lot of things that are iconic of him seem to kind of be missing. But I don't know, the trick to capturing him, I still haven't figured it out. Every time I do it, it's like insanely difficult. I don't even know why.
I've always thought there's a certain irony to the fact that, you know, probably the most important film amongst fanboys on this planet is the original Star Wars film. Yeah. And the point of fact is that Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill are probably two of the hardest people on this planet to get right. Why that is, weird. I don't know. But
I can't figure it out either.
No. I wonder if sometimes it's because they're so ingrained on our collective consciousness, because we've all seen the films like a million times, and we've seen the pictures and the posters. You know, we know these people's faces. It's kind of like C-3PO's face and the Stormtroopers and Darth Vader's. You know, when they're not right, as fanboys, we collectively just know. You know, it's kind of like you think, no, I've seen that face so many times. I know that's not right. And for you guys at the other side of the fence, it must be like, oh God, you know. Am I going to get it right this time? Am I going to make them happy?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know how many Harrison Fords I've done at this point, but it's like there's elements I like in each of them, and there's just I still don't think I've gotten it quite right. It's madness. And Mark Hamill is like you said, very much the same way. It's so tough. I don't know why. I think that's what's most frustrating is not knowing what you can do to make it better.
Yeah.
And of course, the other side of it is it's not all sculpture. You got to also be able to get the paint right, and then production's got to be right, and it's this real delicate balance, and you just never know what you're going to end up with.
Absolutely.
Yeah, paint is such a critical factor. You can make and break a great sculpt with paint.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead, James.
I was just going to ask Trevor, and sorry to interrupt. Did you do the new sculpt for Harrison Ford on the Hoth figures?
Oh yeah, yep, that was my work on that. Ooh, that's one I was pretty happy with. That one, I'm most happy with. Sideshow's kind of playing around with some new techniques, and it looks like it's turned out great. You know, I don't even know what they're up to with the
what could that be actually? When you say new techniques, this is like we're
yeah, well, I just mean to say, like, the way they're going to be producing things, maybe, you know, materials and paint techniques. I don't even know, really. I'm on the outside of it, but just looking at it, it looks quite a bit different than what they used to do, the way they used to approach things. So, yeah, that was exciting for me to see the Han and the Luke. They look pretty cool.
Oh, you did the Luke, too?
Yeah, both of those.
Oh, okay. People are losing their mind over those on the internet. And where else on the internet, I guess. But
it's good. They should. They're really good. Actually, they're very good. They're very good. Those two. I mean, why do you think, Trevor, that like lots of people like there's so many. You've done so many of these great TV licenses now off your own back again. That, you did an amazing Dexter. You've done the Serenity. You've even done the Terminator girl from the Sarah Connor Chronicles TV show. You've done, what's the actress's name again? I forget.
Summer Glau.
Summer Glau. You've done a couple of versions of Summer Glau, and you get all these things. Why do you think we haven't had 1/6 companies getting more TV licenses? I mean, it just seems like it's a ripe field for freezing. I mean, there's right at top: Walking Dead, Spartacus, Game of Thrones, Dexter, Breaking Bad. That's 5 major TV shows. I dare say if you did a John Hamm...
Hey, you forgot Battlestar Galactica.
Battlestar Galactica, yes, Serenity.
We could go on, but anyway, yeah.
Axe Cop, any one of those?
Yeah.
But
it's true, I'm not sure why that is. I think it's just that the licenses, this year alone, we've seen how many Iron Man things, I think it's just that must be way bigger business than even we realize. And by comparison, it's probably more important for them to focus on that kind of stuff than... And it's really frustrating for us because we hope for variety all the time, both collectors and artists,
What would you
and
like?
it's just, I don't know. It's weird.
What would you like?
It is, I do think there's some of it that sometimes the industry gets gun shy. There's been some notorious flops from the TV side with things, but they pick bad licenses. They pick the wrong licenses, like Lost and Heroes, and
right.
And companies didn't do well, but they tended to pick, a show like Lost is not a show that lends itself to figures, and it's certainly not a show. Sure, it's got 20 million viewers, but I can tell you that 19,999,000 of them don't collect toys. So it's not
right.
They're picking the wrong licenses. Firefly is not an example of a bad license. I can guarantee that most of the brown coats buy collectibles. So they do get gun shy though.
Yeah, I think that has to be it, and it's expensive, to even risk something. So if you make the wrong risk, you could potentially be putting yourself 6 feet under. So it's kind of it's tricky. It's like, I don't know. I would sure love to see more TV stuff.
Yeah, it's like said it. But see, you look at something like Game of Thrones, which seems like a no-brainer on so many levels. It's hugely popular. It's a fanboy favorite. It's got sword and sorcery. It's got that whole kind of thing going on, and the great outfits. But then I think at the same time, Sideshow, when they were working with the Lord of the Rings license originally, again, I thought that would just fly off the hooks, but it obviously didn't. The fact that they didn't pursue it as vigorously as they could have done obviously meant that the buyers out there weren't as into it as we would hope. I also think the buyers market has increased and changed quite drastically over the last 4 or 5 years. Yeah. So I wonder if the kind of people that are investing and have the money to spend on Lord of the Rings at that level of kind of collectibles has changed now. So I wonder if those kind of people would be more into buying like high quality Hobbit figures, or whether they would then invest in something like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I'd like to believe that.
Yeah, I mean, when you're asking people to invest, $150, $200 a figure, it's
right.
And if you're gonna like do the line justice, then you're gonna need to do a lot of figures. It's that catch-22 position. It's like, do you just buy the figures you want? In which case, you're not supporting the line enough to make it go further. And if you buy them all, you're going to go broke. It's kind of like, where do you go?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So is it worth paying whatever you got to pay to get a license just to produce one character that people are definitely going to buy, and that's kind of all you make from the license? So yeah, I don't know. It's got to be a big part of why companies are weighing the real.
Well, I would like to see, when you're doing figures that are $200 a pop, you don't have to make many of them. That's another advantage to them. Is while that market is much smaller, you don't have to make as many or sell as many. And I would love to see somebody on the 6 scale or high end side do what McFarlane did back 10, 12 years ago when they did the movie Maniacs line. They did that exact thing. They decided, let's just make the one character or 2 characters out of these licenses and stick them in a line where you've got 6 different movies or TV shows represented in a series. Yeah. And they made money at it. It worked really well until they went away from that formula and started going all aliens or all predators and kind of lost that focus. I'd love to see a 6-scale company do that. Do a, Icons from TV line or something.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I'd never even thought of that. But yeah, back in those days, that was the most exciting thing, was the variety you saw at the store, So it's like, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think
So somebody out there listening, pick it up and run with it. Come on.
Yeah.
There must be some toy people out there, that can pull the right strings.
I wish I had some influence. I'd pass it on.
What would you
I
like
got
to work on,
nothing.
Trevor?
I'm sorry?
What would you really like to work on? What's something that you feel has been done or hasn't been done? What would you really like to get done? And then I've got a question for all of the rest of our hosts as well. My next question to all of the hosts then would be: if you had Trevor to pick one character for him to head sculpt, who would you like to see him have a go at? So everyone have a think about that while he's answering this question.
This is always like a really hard question for me to answer. It's like I feel like I've gotten to do so much of what I do love. I mean, there's still things that haven't been done, certainly, and I feel like I could even do things I have already done better, which I wouldn't mind having an opportunity to do that. But man, I don't know. I'm drawing a blank. What do you guys want to see?
Well, do you know what? I think because when you did the stuff on Breaking Bad, which is just phenomenal, it's so obvious that you love it. It's so obvious that you want to do that.
Well, it's amazing.
And the pain of the matter is that you have the ability, you can do it because you love it, and then you can translate what you love into this beautiful little kind of 3D object, a kind of an homage to these actors and people that you've really enjoyed watching on screen. So for me personally, it would have to be personally as a I would say a little film, but it's actually a cult film called Withnell and I.
Hey!
Yeah, which is a film that I've seen more than any other film, and I've seen a lot of films a lot of times. I can pretty much watch the film and quote it from the beginning to the end. And the two lead characters in that, which are Withnell, obviously, and this other guy who you never learn his name during the film, but he's called Marwood in the script. For me, just to have them as perfect 1/6 replicas on my shelf would I'd just die a happy man. So that for me would be it, but it's a bit of an obscure one.
I like obscure,
man. If I was going to have Trevor do a custom, and I will point out that Christmas is right around the corner. I would love a Daryl Dixon from Walking Dead. I think that I don't know great representation of those guys, and of the set, that would be the one character. I'd love them all, but that would be the one I'd really love.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Daryl with his crossbow or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one I'm really surprised has. Walking Dead especially surprises me that nobody's pursuing that. I don't know what's up. I mean, there's toy companies like
somebody has picked
McFarlane,
up 6, haven't they? But
3-0 is finally announced. They're doing 6-scale figures. We'll see how they
do. Oh, okay.
I see. They showcase a couple of zombies and SDCC. I can't remember now.
It's Merle, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think Merle.
That was it, yeah.
Yeah, it was Merle and a couple of zombies they showed
That's
San
the
Diego.
one on the chains, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Good?
Cool.
Was it good?
They weren't terrible, but we'll have to. I mean, they were clearly early work, early prototypes.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Okay. James, what would your?
I'd be Blade Runner for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Good call.
That's a
Good
big
call.
one.
See now you've said that. That's making me doubt Withnell life.
Yeah. I mean,
I was so shocked nobody
Jeff, who's
said
going to
it.
buy Withnell and I?
Yeah.
I think it'd be just
me.
you and I.
Me. I don't care about anybody else.
I'd love to do that. A whole line of them would be amazing. Yeah.
I'm so shocked that it hasn't happened yet. I understand because of the licensing and stuff, but I would just think, I mean, 60s Batman just got licensed.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I think it's going to happen at some point.
yeah, it should be possible. I don't know.
It's got to happen eventually.
A Deckard
Let's
and
start
a
a
baddie's
breeding
all you need.
Deckard.
Deckard and a
Chris,
baddie.
Roy.
Deckard.
But
only-
Chris
it only
as well, and
goes
Roy,
to-
and Terrell, the whole. God, if you're a fan, you got to just love the whole lot. But
JF Sebastian, his little
realistic
figures, his little dudes as well, a couple little dudes with him as well. Home again, home, jiggity jig.
good evening, JS.
That's a very good suggestion, actually, James, on that one. Well, I've got a certain buy. I mean, I would absolutely love a John Carter, because I just love that movie. I love John Carter. I want a John Carter and a Deja Torres exactly like they were in that movie. I love it, and that's what I would absolutely love. And it's just so when every time I watch that film, I nearly cry. I just cry because it just got such a bum deal, and I'm just so annoyed there's no merchandise of it or anything. So that's what I would love, a lovely John Carter. Although I would love a 1987 Master Universe movie Skeletor as well. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
not sure about Dolph. That'd be a lot of shiny glass you'd be putting on a figure there. I think to get those pegs all
Yeah.
Up in there like that. It'd be pretty good. But I think a Skeletor would be pretty good because you get all his lights on his arm and all that kind of stuff. And his face, I know you could go to town on that face as well. Get the Frank Langella kind of vibe.
That's a cool idea. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, there you go, Trev. I mean, feel free, you know.
Okay, I'll start working on all this. Get back to you guys in a week.
I mean, you must, because I get that a lot as an illustrator as well. I mean, people just think you can kind of sneeze some stuff together sometimes. Like, oh, I've got a magic, you know, I've got to create a ninja filter. Oh, can you just do me a quick ninja? Yeah, sure. Work on a ninja. Oh no, just do me a quick ninja. Yeah. I'm like, well, there's no create a ninja filter in Photoshop, dude.
Yeah. I love that people are kind of ignorant to the process of it, though, because you get a lot of passion from people, and it's awesome that they want you to work on stuff. It's just they don't realize it's like, oh man, it's a month if I could only work on that alone. And so yeah, it's cool, but yeah, I feel the same way.
But so I think people just think people just think it's a hobby. I mean, I worked as an illustration designer for a long time, and for no end of times, people would say to me, "Oh yeah, you know, I'm just thinking of doing this thing. Could you have a look at it? And perhaps you could just sketch something for me in the evening when you're watching television." You're thinking, well, hang on, that's not the way it works. It's my job. You know, you wouldn't ask a mechanic to come around and fix your car in the evening when he's watching television. It's just a perception of, as an artist, you're just, it's a bit hairy-fairy. You can just do it whenever you want.
Yep, yeah. Yeah, and that's the side of it where it's like, oh, I wish you understood that this was really hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good point.
Would you bounce around then between head sculpts then when you're like working on one?
Oh,
would you bounce in between ones and the other?
I like to do that. Yeah, I like to do that because it keeps your eye fresh. You know, it's kind of, I don't like to have a ton of stuff going at once just because I feel like I'm not getting any of it done. But having like 2 or 3 is really good, just because you'll think you're on the right path with a portrait, and then you work on something else for a little while, come back to it, and you're like, oh man, what was I seeing?
Yep.
And it's nice to keep yourself fresh.
It is. You need that kind of third eye refresh, don't you?
Yes.
So, do you ever show your work to somebody early on else other than you to look at it and say, hey, I think I'm doing this really well. What do you think?
I've never been. I get really like timid with that. I like to only show it when I feel like I've got something, and then I'm open to criticism afterwards. But yeah, I get. It's just a personal hang up. I have a hard time showing rough stuff because I'm like, I know that this isn't there, and I'm gonna just keep pushing until I think it's there. Then I'll get criticisms, you know, and see what to do. It may be kind of a counterproductive way to do things, but I've always kind of had that hang up.
Do you find criticism is good for you? When are you quite open to it?
Yeah. Well, when it's coming from people that I know have a good eye, you know.
Peers,
I mean,
kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when like companies that I work for, if they've got things they want to change, it's almost always for the better. So you do it, and you may not see it at first, but once you make the changes, you're like, oh yeah, that needed to be done. So it's such a hard. It's like a giant math equation trying to figure out a face, and you're going to get a few numbers wrong, you know, every time. So yeah, some people can help you figure things out a little bit and get the equation to be a little more harmonious.
Can I just say, I mean, obviously, I've mentioned it already a couple of times, the Breaking Bad portraits and everything you've done. I've been really impressed with a lot of the stuff I've been watching, you know, just you've been posting up on Facebook. But from your perspective, you know, being someone who works in the trade, I mean, would you say there's could you mention 2 or 3 jobs that have come up recently by other artists that you've thought, wow, you know, that's really standing out for me. That's something I just think is
yeah, I mean,
really
I'm pretty impressed with just about everything that comes out, but there have been some things that have, like with Hot Toys, they did, I mean, it's more Iron Man stuff, but I really like it. They did Ben Kingsley Mandarin. I think that head is just really good. And also their, from Man of Steel, they're Michael Shannon. I think that's the expression thing is really admirable that they're going for something that's that intense. Yeah, I mean, through production, who knows if it's going to work out, but usually I think that's kind of why we see a lot of things that are sort of expressionless, because they know they can kind of get it through without looking a little funky in the end. But I admire the boldness and doing expression stuff, because it's hard.
Absolutely. And I think it takes us back to that whole licenser thing again. It's because, like, you know, a lot of actors might not want to be depicted with a grimace or whatever. They just want to kind of look.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also a company. They make custom figures, just really impressive stuff. I did some work with them. They call it iMini-Me. Anybody from the message boards knows.
Yeah.
They just, I don't know the artist that did the work on it, but they did a Lee Van Cleef from Good, the Bad, and the Ugly recently that just blew me away. I think it looks amazing.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, any more questions now for Trevor? Because we'll start wrapping it up soon. I mean, I was going because I had one final question, but while he's answering that, have a think about each of your last question for Trevor, and we can wrap it up there. My final question, Trevor, would be: let's take, as it's so popular, the Breaking Bad head sculpt. How long, how many hours would you think you would have put down? Maybe not hours, but let's say if you were to add the hours up into a day, how many days or weeks would it take you to get that head sculpt from start to finish, forgetting the waiting time for the clients to come back with for approvals,
right?
But the actual working hours on a head sculpt, like from start to finish. How, we'll say Breaking Bad, the Heisenberg head from Breaking Bad. How long would that take you?
That one was about a week and a half, like for the first permutation of it, which was like I think I did the bald, just mustache version.
Right.
I was just like really pumped at the time. That's actually pretty fast for me. I at least 2 weeks, usually 2.5 to do a really good portrait. But
That's
yeah,
like
the Breaking Bad stuff.
It'd be like
I'm sorry?
That would be like 9 to 5 hours, like a week of 9 to 5, roughly.
Oh yeah, I work all the time. It's like, for me, I can't really. One of the problems really in this business is trying to figure out how you can balance yourself, and I've been pretty bad at that. I just kind of try to push as hard as I can on a thing until it looks good, and it's usually a week and a half to 2 weeks to get a good portrait, if that's all I'm working on, and that's kind of rarely the case now. I'm balancing 2 or 3 things at once, so they all take quite a bit longer.
Cool, Mike. Question?
Cool.
Sure. What would be the one piece of advice you'd give new artists trying to get into the business?
Yeah. You do it for the right reason. Whatever you're into, do that. Don't try to make work that you think is going to be, appreciated because you think it's going to get you a job or something. Just do whatever you're passionate about, and be critical of yourself. Don't ever think that you're any good. I mean, there's a point where that's unhealthy too. But just be honest with how you look at your own work and just keep at it.
Yeah, the thing I'd finish up with, Trevor, would be that obviously a lot of the stuff we're talking about today is kind of fan favourite stuff, and it's also stuff that you're commissioned to actually work on. But I wonder where you see yourself. I don't want to pin you down too much, but where you see yourself in 5-10 years from now. Do you see yourself doing more pure art, or do you see yourself working very much in this field, or perhaps moving into television or film work? I don't know. I just wondered what your kind of personal aspirations were.
Yeah, that's actually something that's been on my mind quite a bit lately. I hope that I can continue on in this field, but as things kind of keep, progressing with the realism, it gets insanely hard to make something that anybody's happy with, and that's kind of, that makes it tough to keep at it. I've been kind of fatigued this year with stuff, and in the interest of keeping myself fresh, I do see. I would think in years to come I'll be kind of jumping around to other things, just. Hopefully not abandoning anything that I'm already working on, because I do very much enjoy this kind of stuff. Just that the process sometimes bogs you down, and you do need to kind of jump around. I would love to do some kind of more personal work, stuff that everybody would look at. It sounds like George Lucas or something, stuff that people would look at and not like, but I would love.
Just cool stuff for stuff's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we all, as artists, that's all we really kind of want to do.
Yeah. Well, it's something I found, when you move into the world of work and, you're commissioned to do everything, it's kind of like, I found there was less and less time personally, as an illustrator, just to do the stuff I wanted to do, and you do just end up doing the work.
Yep.
Yes.
And I've always thought that regardless of what your art form is, whether you're a writer or a painter or a filmmaker, if you're an artist, it will out. It's got to come out. You'll do it somehow. And I kind of began to realise perhaps I'm not the artist I thought I was. Perhaps I am an illustrator, And
Right.
and I think, you know, I admire if you can find that to do that, take the time, find the time, then that's admirable.
Yeah, that is the challenge. Is it's like you're exhausted from the work you have to do,
Exactly.
and then if you can find time to kind of pursue your own stuff, it is admirable. I don't often find the time to do it anymore.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Discipline and tiredness are a hard cocktail, man. I'll tell you.
Yes.
And commuting. Add commuting to that.
And commuting. James, your question?
I don't know if I'd even ask another question. I think I'd probably just heap more praise on Trevor.
Oh, don't do that.
I think it's neat that in a day and age where, you know, people are using 3D modeling and 3D printing and doing so many other things with sculpting, I think it's cool that there's somebody who's as accomplished as he is and approaches it kind of from a classical standpoint. I just think it's really neat.
Hands-on.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
That's actually a really good point. Actually, it's an interesting little quick question there. Actually,
Yeah.
What do you think, Trevor, on that? Like comparatively, because you know we started with the 3D scanning, and I just remember my friend having WWF figures or WWE figures, and they started that 3D scanning stuff, and it's like, oh well, yeah, it does look like they do, but it just doesn't look quite right because doesn't have that kind of.
Yeah, there's something.
The actors posting there, it's stilted, or it's just a bit like stoned looking or something. You know,
They look like plastic cadavers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Plastic cadavers. They don't look quite right. So, where's your stand there? Because I would always love to hope that, like I want 2D animation to continue. I would never want 3D to take over. I mean, would it be a similar bag with you where you wouldn't want
Absolutely,
ever to?
I'm very much the same way. I think. I mean, I'm curious to see where it's going to get because it does seem to be progressing year by year. But at the same time, so far, until they can get a print that matches what these artists are doing in the 3D programs, it doesn't really help a lot because you got to do so much work after the thing is milled out or printed.
Yeah.
Now there are some guys though that are doing great work in that. I think of. Adam Ross is a sculptor who I think almost exclusively works digitally, and I'd be curious to see how his printing process and stuff goes, and how he has to, what his process is after the fact.
That's still
because
quite hands-on, though, isn't it? The digital stuff. It's still you're still. I mean, I know it's a virtual reality piece of mold, but it still has that hands-on stuff, though, doesn't it, to a certain degree? Or do you feel there's still a separation there? Is it about getting your hands dirty and getting under your fingernails?
For me, that's what I enjoy. Like, anytime I sit down at a computer, I don't connect with it the same way. But anybody who does, I think it's great. I have no kind of... I support any kind of creative expression, but for me, I can't connect with it, If it all goes digital at some point, that's kind of the point where I'm out of the business.
Do you know what? That's kind of how I feel. It's kind of, I've got to a position in my life. I've been illustrating for years. I was traditionally an airbrush artist and masking things out and using frisk film and artboard and whatever. Yeah. And obviously, like most people, I've moved into using Photoshop and whatever, and it's kind of cool. But there is part of me that just really yearns for that, and still to this day, although I've got a tablet in front of me and I've got Photoshop. When I'm doing my initial sketches, it's all on a pad, it's all with paper, it's all with pencil. Even if it's, scribbly and smudged to hell, I will then scan that in, and that is then my starting point. I can't personally start with the tablet yet. That's just the way it works.
Dirty. Getting nice and dirty. That's what you want, a little bit of ink on the old
fingertips. Yeah, exactly. You want some you need some graphite on your fingers.
I agree.
Your house. If someone's knocking on your door there, so I think that's probably a good sign for us to actually end the show, because I think kids are knocking on doors and dinners are now ready for everybody. So thank you very much, Trevor, for coming on our 11th illuminating episode.
Cheers, Trevor. It's been brilliant.
Thanks, Trevor.
Thanks for having me, guys. This was a lot of fun. You can find my gallery of work on DeviantArt, or I'm on Facebook, just Trevor Grove. Thanks for having me.
Europe listeners, look no further than Space. Space, search for popular action figures and collectibles ends. The best service possible and steady accessibility by email and telephone is one of the top priorities at Space. They carry a wide range of collectibles, not only from major brands like Sideshow, Hot Toys, Enterbay, NECA and McFarlane, but they also specialise in the exotic and small new manufacturers. A very important department to them is their 1/6 scale section, which is currently getting bigger and bigger, offering lots of clothes, bodies, head sculpts and accessories. Hot Toys is of course one of their specialities, so you can pre-order all newly announced figures from their web store. They often have Hot Toys figures in stock earlier than any other dealers. They are also the best source in Europe for convention exclusives. Space loves what they do, so you can depend on them for secure packaging, ensuring your items reaches you in mint condition. In-stock items get processed normally the same day. Pre-ordering customers will be notified in advance once an item arrives in stock and before it gets shipped. Space is located in Germany and offers clearly arranged shipping flat rates to all European countries. On most destinations you can even get free shipping. For EU customers, this of course means that you will not be surprised by any customs fees or import taxes. Space is serving us collectors with the finest items for over 15 years. If you're located anywhere in Europe, do go to Space. www.space-figures.com. If you feel there's any topics we should be covering, please do let us know. You can email me, Eamon at eamonart.com, or you can contact Mike at his website, which is
mwctoys.com.
And on our upcoming podcast, we should have some more guests coming up actually in the next few weeks as well, so keep your ears tuned on that. There's a thread on the Sideshow Freaks message board about the podcast, so go in there and have a gander in there, post any questions you like on there. Gentlemen, if you'd like to give our guests a good adieu.
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 Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.